spostiamo infatti a Los Angeles e andiamo in una realtà che in qualche misura racconta l'azienda che si racconta prima di altre, un'azienda fondata, pensate, nel 1999 addirittura da Bill Gates. Oggi ha una library di 100 milioni di immagini e di 500.000 video a disposizione ed è una società di produzione video, agenzia pubblicitaria che ci guiderà anche nel racconto di quello che avviene dall'altra parte del mondo e dei segreti del successo per un brand che si relaziona in un mondo oggi di fatto interconnesso. Con grande piacere sul palco di OBESUMMIT vorrei chiamare Glushon di Brand Entertainment Network. Benvenuta. Welcome.
Buongiorno. Mille grazie for having me today. Let's see here. It's my pleasure to be here today from Los Angeles. Exciting to see so many faces in the audience. Thank you to Obe for having us as well. And I'm excited to share with you a little bit more about brand and entertainment and the power of brand integration, getting brands within consumer content within the entertainment landscape. And just to clarify just a little bit about Ben, Brand and Entertainment Network, or BEN, is wholly owned by Bill Gates, and we are the leading global entertainment company to integrate brands within content across the entire entertainment ecosystem, from films to streaming platforms such as Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and so many more that are on the near-term horizon, to celebrity content, music videos, and of course the ever-growing influencer marketing community as well. And so we're really touching the full ecosystem. When we talk about brand integration, though, and I often get asked this, what's the difference between brand integration and product placement? And I think it's fairly nuanced when we talk about that, but it's an important distinction. Brand integration is about being embedded within the storyline. It's about being an intrinsic part of that story arc that we just learned a little bit about, and allowing the creator to create the content the way that creator knows how best to create it. Product placement, while they are used sometimes interchangeably, is more like having, the Coca-Cola bottle on the screen in front of, the American Idol audience. So just a bit of a distinction there. And I think another opportunity for us to share just how brand integration works is to show you. So I'll break up my speech here with a few videos, one of which I'll share with you now. So that gives you a little sampling of what I mean when I talk about, again, brand integration, the brands being a part of the storyline. But why are we here today? Because we know that there's been shifts in consumer habits. There's a very, very diverse ecosystem when it comes to advertising now. It's harder to reach your audience in many ways with traditional advertising. And one of the reasons, of course, we're seeing that is that ad blocking has become effervescent within the global advertising community. And we see, in fact, and this is, of course, within Italy, within Europe in general, and within the United States, over 47% of global internet users use an ad blocker, many of them saying that ads are disruptive or they're annoying or irrelevant. So it's hard to reach that audience when you have technology here that precludes you from, airing your 30-second spot. In addition to ad blocking, we're also seeing that ad skipping is ever present as well. So, if you're not an ad blocker, you might be watching maybe the first 2 seconds or so of an advertisement, or you're completely, jumping to another, activity before you can actually watch the advertisement and the content that's shortly thereafter. So what does this mean for advertisers from a challenge standpoint? Of course, it means that the less that an ad is watched, the lower the recall and the lower then the ad value. And as marketers, we're very focused on ROI. So again, we're seeing a lot of disruption in the technology where consumers are implementing these technological investments in order to be able to get to the content sooner, the content that they desire. And of course, social media has completely transformed itself. I thought this slide was really pretty fascinating because it's only 10 years ago when we were celebrating Ryan Higa, who surpassed over 1 million subscribers. Now, as we look to the far right over there, you can see that most of the celebrities and influencers that are cited here have tens of millions of subscribers. Social media, the platforms globally are huge. In China alone, of course, we've got one of our influencers cited there as well. They've got more social media platforms than anywhere else. It's a very diverse ecosystem. We're seeing that on YouTube, over 1 billion hours of YouTube content is viewed every single day. 88% of that content is from influencer-created content. So it's a very, very large ecosystem, projected to be over $10 billion in influencer marketing scale globally. And again, it's something that your audience is consuming at the millennial and Gen Z level especially. So you need to be a part of that ecosystem. And then when we look at content trends, again, social media has expanded, but also the content landscape is expanded. Get all your cameras here because this is important, absolutely. Some good data points here. So traditional advertising, linear TV, it's still important. We work very closely with broadcasters. In fact, what we find with broadcasters is when they air an integration within their content, while they see viewership at certain impression levels, they tend to actually see higher impression levels when that content airs on the streaming platforms. And we're seeing more and more players every single day. Netflix actually has usurped viewership as it pertains to the US cable providers. But in addition to Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, there's also some new players in the ecosystem. Disney is going to be entering the ecosystem later on this year. They'll actually control 50% of the Hollywood content that's created out there. So there's definitely one that we're watching. And in addition, Apple has been very, very bullish. I'm not sure if many of you caught their streaming release when they talked a little bit about their new streaming platform, but they've got some very, very heavy-handers within that, including Oprah, Steven Spielberg, Reese Witherspoon, et cetera. So there's quite a few new content opportunities out there within the streaming platforms. And in addition to this, what you'll often find, too, is that when the producers want to work within the streaming platform, this allows them to have a bit more flexibility from a content creation standpoint. So we see the likes of Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy who are moving from linear TV broadcast networks to the streaming platforms because it allows them to have a bit more flexibility with their storytelling. And then from a global standpoint, it used to be that, historically all the content was produced in Hollywood and then it was consumed globally. But now we're seeing content produced across the world. Obviously, there is a rich history here in Italy with Italian filmmakers. We see it as a hotbed for content creation. I've cited a couple examples in other nearby markets as well. One that I want to pay particular attention to, which is a Spanish teen drama, Elite, which in its first month of release generated over 20 million viewers. So there's just huge scale and opportunity within the global content ecosystem, where brands can be a part of that content in their origin language. And with technology, of course, with subtitles, et cetera, it just flattens that ecosystem so that more consumption can happen globally. So that's a little bit of a taste on the ecosystem. You know, again, we've got technology that is disrupting traditional advertising. We've got more scale, more access to content than ever before. So how do brands then reach your audience? And the solution that we feel at Ben and that we're all talking about today is brand entertainment. Us specifically believe in the power of brand integration, which again is getting brands seamlessly and authentically within the content. And why is it so effective? So again, some really great data points for you as well. Well, we talked a little bit about how, it's unskippable and unblockable. You know, the content itself, the brands live within the content. And so it allows you to reach your audience without having to worry about that disruption. It's also a consumer's preference. Consumers are telling us that they prefer integrations to traditional advertising. 65% of consumers are actually watching streaming platforms in lieu of linear TV, and those that are watching those prefer that integration. And they live in perpetuity. You know, I've touched on this a little bit, but as we look at the streaming platforms especially, the viewership is so significant for those linear TV programs then that are streaming that then the impression count continues to grow and grow and grow. And then most importantly, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on when we talk about best practices, but allowing the content creator to be the messenger is so, so crucial. Remember, as consumers, we're seeking out that content because we know the content creator, whether it's an influencer or it's a showrunner, and that allows the audience to more warmly embrace that integration. It's consistent, too, with how cultural relevancy has shifted. I touched on this briefly, but now streaming really is the new prime time. Now there's plenty of room, there's plenty of white space. We've actually calculated that of all the impressions that are available, 90% still are untouched. There's still a lot of tonnage for brands to be able to capture integration opportunities. But of those top 10 streaming shows during 2018, all of them had integrations within the content. And those, of course, range from, you know, Stranger Things to Miss Maisel to Jack Ryan, etc. So those top streaming shows are all getting into the integration business and reaching their audience within the content. The audience itself is projected within the integration space to be over $10 billion next year. When we look at the influencer marketing space and we look at those creators, they are, again, more like a relationship with the audience than traditional celebrities. In fact, we've seen some celebrities like Will Smith and Jack Black get now into the influencer-created content because they see that there's an opportunity to engage with their fans. When you look at teen consumption, over 80% of them are on YouTube, over 70% of them are on Instagram, and most of them, actually, the majority of them are saying that they're constantly online. So for you to miss that opportunity to reach the influencer marketplace, those content creators that are diverse in nature, from gaming to lifestyle to beauty, etc., is just a very, very robust opportunity. And then we talked a little bit about this, but ultimately being within the content allows you to reach that audience without the proclivity of any kind of ad skipping. So we've done a number of consumer studies over the years, and when we talk a little bit about ROI and really driving either brand lift or farther down even the funnel, and we'll get to that a little bit later, conversion metrics as well. We found that viewers say that 73% of integrations were less intrusive with ads, and also that integrations made the brands more relatable. The head of advertising for Hulu has also said that integrations deliver an 89% higher purchase intent than a 30-second spot. So we're seeing that there is an efficacy here for brand integration. It has been proven in the market. Of course, there's more availability and opportunity than ever before, but we believe that the future of advertising is within the content because that is, again, where your audience is going. So how do we succeed in this ever-changing landscape? And at Ben, because we've been doing this for so many years, over 30 years of Hollywood product placement experience, over a decade of influencer marketing, We've established some key best practices in the space with key metrics associated with them. And I've highlighted just a handful of them because I think it's important that, as humans, we're only able to digest a handful of data points throughout the day. So I've highlighted the top 3. And some of this actually has been echoed by some of the previous speakers. So we believe that a cross-platform approach is so critical. And what's the reason for that? Well, Laura's already touched on the fact that you don't want to do one-offs, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like investing. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. Likewise, with brand integration, you want to touch the entire entertainment ecosystem for a couple of reasons. One, you want to have a storyline, the storyline that has an opportunity to represent your brand message across the various different platforms, from influencer-created content to music videos to streaming platforms and film. And it allows you to reach them in a very diverse way with very diverse gestation periods as well. With regards to influencer-created content, that can happen overnight. But as we all know, for those in the room that have worked on feature films, the gestation period for that can be anywhere from 12 months to 18 months. For streaming content, because it's released all in once, it's very similar to that kind of gestation period as well. And so as brands, you really need to plan fairly far out. Right now, in Hollywood, we're looking at productions that are shooting now that won't be airing until the first half of next year. And so you really have to plan on the forefront of that in order to reach your audience in these different platforms. We also recommend when you do a cross-platform approach that you do so on a hybrid basis. I can't tell you how many brands come to us and say, I want to be in Stranger Things. That's my number one choice. Or I want to be in the next Marvel film. Well, of course, that is something that we can look to consider, but there's also these really great opportunities like Elite, for instance, where you can reach your viewership using a more hybrid approach, looking at those content opportunities that are either through micro-influencers or up-and-coming shows. It's better to be perhaps in the first season than to be in the follow-up season. So it's a diverse way of looking at the content in a way that allows you to cast your eggs in a more less risk-averse way. As the exclusive partner of the Producers Guild of America, we also have access to over 90% of Hollywood productions. And what we find is that within those productions, producers also want a diverse slate of brands as well. And so it's important to cast a wide net because the production community also is very interested in working with various brands. Now, this is really our North Star, and it's a very simple slide, but it echoes a lot of what's been shared here today, and it really gets to the crux of why. Why? We call this our consensus triangle, and what it represents is a win-win-win between the brand, the creators, and the viewers. And it's really kind of the first time in advertising that the audience is happy that the content creation has been empowered by the brand. So what does this mean when it pertains to brand integration? Well, we've talked a little bit about understanding the brand metrics. That's important here. The brand still creates the objective. What is it that they're seeking to do? So we work across various businesses, from Procter & Gamble to Disney to Microsoft to Dyson. All of them are sharing with us in typical media speak what their brand objectives are. Are they looking to launch in a new marketplace? Are they looking to change consumers' perception? What are the KPIs that they're looking to achieve? And who is their audience? We need to know all of that before we go into the production community or before we talk to influencers. And then when we are armed with that, then we let the creative create. That is so critical, and I know for those of us that have been in traditional advertising, it's a little disjointed. It feels a little unusual versus a 30-second spot because you have to let go of some of the control. But these creators know their audience. They know their audience better than anyone, and ultimately, they are the ones that have to create the content in a way that is authentic and organic. Again, the difference between product placement and brand integration. And when that happens, then the viewer, again, sees the brand as enhancing the content rather than disrupting it. And you've got a happy consumer. So again, this has to be I guess, sort of North Star as it pertains to your integration objectives. Because at the end of the day, if you don't achieve this consensus, the brand integration can be disruptive and it ends up having a backfiring effect. And as a Bill Gates-owned company, we believe in the power of technology and data. And we talked a little bit throughout the sessions earlier about the importance of measurement. And there is measurement capabilities within creative content, within brand integration. Now, brand integration, most of it's video-based, and there's more and more content than ever before. And so to be able to analyze that, we need AI. And specifically, we need AI deep learning neural networks, which is a deeper level of AI that allows you to capture all of the unstructured data. So that's going beyond the structured data, which is the clicks and the views and the impressions, into the actual tone, the audio. And the computers and the machine learning allow us to understand the nuances of brand integration so that we know from a predictive standpoint what will perform best, what channels will perform best, what types of integration will perform best, which brands are the best fit within that brand integration, and it allows us to do so on a much more scalable basis. Technology is a part of our ecosystem now, and we need to embrace it because it allows us to measure. And so in ending, I'd like to just share an example of how we have captured a lot of those best practices from cross-platform and hybrid approach into the consensus triangle, and finally ending with AI being an essential part of the brand integration ecosystem. So it features our CEO and one of our clients, Philo, which is a new streaming platform that is owned by AMC, and it touches on, again, some of these best practices I've discussed.
There's never been a time in the history of this planet where there's been millions and millions of pieces of content uploading every day. And because of this, it's hard as humans for us to really navigate or monitor what is going on. And so we need to use AI and specifically deep learning algorithms in order to sift through all that content and to know what content we should pay attention to, what is trending, what isn't, as well as what content is going to be the best fit for the brand and what's going to have the most positive outcomes.
So for Philo, we are a year old as a company and we are in a space that's hyper competitive. So what our mandate is right now is to really scale from an acquisition perspective. So getting people to subscribe to the service is our #1 goal.
Getting views for them was not enough. So we incorporate our AI and a lot of our generalized data with deep learning, with our deep learning algorithms to better predict which influencers were going to have a more positive ROI for their campaign.
I think from the influencer perspective, it's really important that the influencer actually has some affinity for your product. And that's also something that I think Ben does a really good job of making sure that, they go after influencers that are not just necessarily collecting a check, but they have something to say about your product, and that goes a long way.
And the results were intense. We saw a 172% click-through rate increase. We also saw an increase in sales by 10x. I don't know if this has ever happened in advertising where there's this type of case study that has seen such dramatic results as a result of AI and deep learning technology.
The AI was able to look at a lot of different influencers, dive really deep into the data and looking at the composition of the videos to get beyond, just what we can sort of typically track in terms of those top level KPIs, and understand really what about the content is driving the behavior that we want to see at the end of the funnel, and sort of proxy whether the audience we're talking to is the right type of audience that will ultimately become a TV service subscriber.
It's something that we're just barely starting to see, and that's going to be the next breakthrough, and it's going to be AI deep learning that makes it possible.
25 minuti.
Well, thank you again for your time. 15 minutes goes pretty quickly, but I'm available to answer questions along with some of my colleagues as well. Mille grazie, and thank you again.